Every year, hundreds of people go missing in national parks, and a lot of these cases are under mysterious circumstances. A lot of people believe that there's elements of the paranormal to these cases, where maybe something like Sasquatch was responsible for the disappearance of some of these people. Maybe it was an alien abduction, or maybe someone stepped into a portal and just disappeared forever. I can't say for sure what has happened in those cases, but people go missing under mysterious circumstances, yes, and the cases remain open. They haven't been solved, but also people go missing under very normal circumstances. Like the vast majority of cases, people get lost. They're solo hikers or travelers, and they just wander off trail and they get turned around and they're never seen from again. Maybe they fall down like a crevasse or something, and their body's just never found. There's a lot of cases like that. It is easy to get turned around in the bush. I myself have gotten turned around in the bush a couple of times, and it can happen when you least expect it. Like, one time I was coming down off the top of a mountain, and I was supposed to end up at a lake, which is the lake I, went up the mountain from, and I missed the lake and got turned around and was doing circles in the bush for a couple hours. And I found the lake because eventually there was a helicopter that had flown by and it had circled the lake for some reason. And I figured that was the lake that it was circling. So I traveled in that direction and I got back to the lake where my tent was and everything. And so I was lucky in that case, but a lot of people have no outdoor experience and they go out venturing into the wilderness and they get in trouble. Another thing that can happen is people might get kidnapped. There's a huge possibility of criminal activity being the reason for people disappearing. Especially in these national parks on really popular hiking trails, you'd think that if somebody wanted to snatch a person, they could easily take a solo hiker. Really something you don't think about when you're going hiking. You don't think of that as a danger, right? You're thinking of bears, you're thinking of getting lost and things of that nature. You're not really thinking of there being some creep lurking around in the woods about to take me. But it has happened. People say there's a famous case, the boy Dennis Martin back in the 60s. He was a young boy. He was taken and his family couldn't find him. And there were reports of people seeing a man with he was carrying a small child, and they thought it could have been Dennis. So things do happen of that nature. But the weird thing is that some of these cases, the circumstances to which the person disappeared are so strange. The people, say it was a small child or something, they're with their family, and the family's doing whatever they're doing outside, having a picnic, camping or whatever, and the parents turn their head for a few seconds or a minute or whatever, and then they look back to see where their kid is and they're just gone, nowhere to be seen. And it seems like within the time duration that the parents weren't paying attention to the kid, there's no way the kid could have traveled as far away as they had. And these kids go missing, and a lot of times they're found in areas that are so far away and through terrain that is so rough and you wouldn't imagine a small child would be able to traverse. Sometimes at the top of a mountain or something. Sometimes they find items of clothing that belong to the person, or a backpack full of equipment, but they seem like they were just left there. They weren't lost or anything like that. Sometimes the clothes are in pristine condition, as if they were just taken off. What could be responsible for that? They say people who have hypothermia will undress and whatnot, but in a lot of these cases, the weather isn't even bad. I mean, one thing that could cause a person to take their clothes off is psychedelics. Some people go off into the wilderness, with a bag of mushrooms in hopes of having a spiritual journey of some kind. And, something like that could happen. They could take off all their clothes and walk off into the bush and never be seen from again. I'm sure that's happened before. Definitely don't recommend. And a lot of people are just inexperienced, They're inexperienced, they don't know the area, You know, maybe they walk off trail to go to the bathroom or something, and they just get turned around. I did read an interesting Bigfoot report, though. There were a couple girls who were hiking, and they had stopped because they were going to take a pee break. And so the one girl goes into the bush, and she's taking a pee, and all of a sudden something starts throwing rocks at her. And so she's like thinking it's her friend. And then she like finishes what she's doing. She goes back to the trail where her friend is, and her friend is there, and she's like, "Why were you doing that? Why were you throwing rocks at me?" And she's like, "I wasn't." The friend goes to take a pee, and the same thing happens. She gets rocks thrown at her while she's going pee. And so they both freak out and get the heck out of there. But that's like typical curious kind of Sasquatch behavior. Then you think of stories like Albert Ostman, who was taken in 1924 on the west coast of British Columbia, picked up in his sleeping bag and carried for miles deep into the wilderness. A Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, can traverse the terrain much more easily than a human being can. So is it Sasquatch that is responsible for some of these cases, especially the ones where the people end up so far away? You know? I don't know. It is possible that alien abductions are going on. And a lot of people think the government is actually responsible for it, that the government is taking people and using them for whatever purposes, human trafficking purposes and whatnot. It gets really, really dark. And that is also, I guess, a possibility, but who can say for sure? Who can say for sure? Parks are run by the government, you know? I always wondered if the government has like operations going on in national parks where they are searching for Sasquatch, because I feel like that's where they would do it, because they can just restrict an area, they can block off an area for whatever reason. Back in the day, I used to work in Jasper National Park. I was a river guide, and they had closed down parts of like a certain river or stream just because there was a little family of harlequin ducks, like one family of harlequin ducks. So they can shut down an area for whatever reason. And I wonder if they do that and they do conduct research on Sasquatch in parks. You'd think that's a high possibility. But alien abduction is always a possibility. I mean, back on July 12th, not that long ago, like a month ago, I filmed that UFO that I posted on here. If you go back a little ways in the videos, I filmed that UFO. That could have ended up as a 411 case. If that thing wanted to take me, there was nobody else around here. It could have easily abducted me, and I would have been nowhere to be seen. But nothing like that happened. Thinking of abduction, I was thinking of like Travis Walton. He was taken for like days. You know, the Travis Walton case, the Fire in the Sky movie. He was abducted and taken for days before he showed up again, like buck naked in a different area. So yeah, if that's a true story, that's pretty crazy. That would be a case of alien abduction with someone going missing for multiple days and then showing up again. But in a lot of these cases, the people aren't found. In some of these parks, there's like hundreds of people missing. You'd think at some point these remains would start being found, you know? And when they're not found, then you start to think, oh, it's probably, criminal activity or something like that. So, I don't know. People get attacked by animals. They get eaten by animals. They get chased by bears, and things like that happen as well. But a lot of times, like, the clothes that they find in those cases aren't, like, they don't show any sign of animal attack. Like, the clothes aren't shredded up. There's no blood and whatnot. So it's just weird. It's just really weird. Like, what is going on in the forests? What are people actually running into? Like, if you think about it, it must be a combination of all these things that I've mentioned. It's just the weird ones where the people end up so far away. Especially the ones where it's children. And they shouldn't be able to get to certain areas, and they end up getting to these areas somehow in, like, a weird amount of time. It's like they did enter through some sort of portal or were carried off by something such as Sasquatch. This is all speculation. There's nothing proving any of this. But we do have the stories, you know, the legends of Sasquatch taking people. Not just Albert Ostman. There's the Mushalot Harry story. And then there's lots of native tales of Sasquatch kidnapping women and taking them off. There was a woman named Seraphine Long who was taken, and she was held captive for years, apparently. And then all the alien abduction stories. I mean, there's countless cases of alien abduction. Usually those cases happen to people who are at home. You know, they're taken from their bed in their bedroom. And they're not usually out camping, except, I mean, the Travis Walton case, he was out working. I'm pretty sure he was like logging. He was on a logging crew or something. So, who knows? But the ultimate creepy thing would be is if there were like, there was some sort of operation going on to like take people from the wilderness while they're out hiking and camping, and you know, it's a huge like human trafficking circle thing or something like that. Like that would be the freakiest thing, in my opinion, because that's dark. Like that is really dark. Why would they do that? You hear lots of stories about that nowadays, like people getting taken and put into human trafficking and whatnot. It's crazy. But in the stories where Sasquatch has taken people, usually the people return. You know, they manage to escape and tell the story. So I wonder, it makes me kind of suspicious, you know. It makes me kind of suspicious because they always manage to escape. I mean, I guess maybe the people who haven't been found, these cold cases, maybe those people hadn't escaped, but I don't know. There's certain elements of like the Albert Ostman story that seem kind of suspicious, and the whole story seems pretty like far-fetched and ridiculous. Yet there's some things that he just describes about the creatures that are still kind of like make you think it's real. Like when he describes how they're like talking and chattering away, it does remind you of the Sierra sounds, which I recently made a video on. Probably like 10, maybe 12 years ago, around there was a guy from Red Deer, Alberta, who went missing in Jasper National Park. He was a friend. He was like an old supervisor of an ex-girlfriend I had. He worked at a rec center there. They were known for like their swimming facilities and whatnot. And this guy was like a good swimmer. I'm pretty sure he must have had like lifeguard training. And this guy is in Jasper National Park with a friend, and they're at some lake there. I can't remember the name of the lake. But this guy gets in the water and he goes to swim in the lake, and he swims off. I believe his friend was like on the shore just relaxing. And this guy swims off into the lake and is never seen from again. It's like broad daylight. This guy swims into the lake and is never seen from again. And the lakes in Jasper are like clear blue, like glacial lakes. They searched the lake with like dive teams. They could not find this guy. He was gone. They never found him. I remember seeing like the obituary and everything for it. Like what is that? You know, this guy, he's a great swimmer, swims out in the lake, and the friend didn't even like hear any signs of struggle or anything like that, like if he was drowning or whatnot. Didn't hear anything. He was just gone. So it's stories like that that really make me wonder what kind of weird stuff is going on. That seems like it could have been a portal or something. Like, if that kind of stuff is real, I have no idea. But that's one of the things people think. You know, was he taken by Sasquatch? The scary thing is that people go missing yearly. And some of them are never found, and the circumstances as to which they disappeared are unexplainable and don't make any sense. People just disappear. It's scary. So is it Sasquatch? Is it aliens? Is it the government? Or is it just, you know? I don't know if you can hear that. There's a bunch of thunder. There's a big storm coming in. Is it just them getting lost? You know? For that guy who was swimming, I don't understand how you could just get lost in a lake and disappear. You know, it feels like he must have had to be taken, or he got out of the water on the other side of the lake and walked off into the bush. I don't know. What do you guys think is taking these people? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching this video. We'll see you next time on Mountain Beast Mysteries.